we have another caller, which is right down our alley, right down the topic of tonight's show. James is calling in from Connecticut. Pronouns are he, him, and James apparently doesn't watch enough porn because he's never seen a movie where there's an implication of clitoral stimulation. And seems like bullshit. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to defend that position, James. You're on the air. What's up?
Oh, yeah. So I was talking about, like, mainstream film, not pornography.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Because I could, like, take you down to a store on the corner in the bad part of town and show you about a couple hundred movies.
I'll go with you.
Go ahead.
Sure,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, all I really was going to say is, there are all sorts of things that aren't shown in mainstream film, but one of the things that always has, like, shocked me, and it's so mainstream and common is, female clitoral stimulation, right, during sex. And, like, you never see the shoulder moving. You never see any of that. It seems like, I mean, not never. I haven't really seen any mainstream.
I mean, kind of never, yeah.
Pulp Fiction?
Bring that up.
Butch goes down on his girlfriend in Pulp Fiction.
Well, I mean, okay, if there was that one movie 35 years ago, then that does change things.
It's literally one of the most famous films ever made.
But that was, again, what we're going back to.
Come up with.
That's going back to what we talked about, where big film studios can push for it. Unfortunately, I've heard Harvey Weinstein had a little bit of a pull with the MPAA, and he's one of the few people that was able to get a rating turned from NC-17 into R. So that might have something to do with it, as that scumbag was involved. I hate to put the idea that
was he involved with Pulp Fiction?
I mean, Miramax has had a long
he's back Tarantino, I think, most of his career.
Relationship is the word I've been looking for as I stumble as a relationship therapist. Yes, they've had a long professional relationship. I can't speak to that film specifically, but James, I think the most interesting part of your call is to maybe subtly suggest to I don't know, maybe some percentage of the audience that's suddenly realizing, like, oh no, wait, clitoral stimulation? I was supposed to include that. That was one of the things. Yes, that's one of the things, and it makes a certain kind of sense to me. I mean, Josh was saying earlier that you don't see a lot of, like, thrusting on film. You certainly don't see a focus or a fixation on female pleasure, and not for nothing. But if you were to, like, just pause a random sex scene in a random movie and then try to work out the geometry and the architecture of it, try to sit on your kitchen counter in the position or in the manner that you see depicted, or even just something like a flat mattress and bed, you see really silly and ridiculous stuff. But again, what concerns me, what I see as the problem here, is just a whole world full of men who have had their entire sexuality be their partners who they're not really talking to, and be film, which is not really depicting these things, and finding themselves, I mean, frankly, the way that I did at 25, 27 years old, before ever having anybody express to me, yeah, no, this part is important. Like, you got to touch that in order for things to happen. And so I hope that shows like this are getting that message out in a way that art maybe or modern cinema isn't. But it is a very real problem. And I wish I had a better explanation other than, I don't know, patriarchy.
That seems to be the go-to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate for anybody to have learned sex from the room and they're screwing their girlfriend's belly button. Like the way that sex is shown in movies is either wildly inaccurate and it's just never paying attention to what the woman needs. I think I've seen Anna Kendrick getting oral in a movie where she would have been like 5 feet up from where the guy's mouth was going to be. Like, it's never portrayed well, even when they try to portray it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not to imply there's only one way to do it or anything like that. But yeah, I would like to see more normal sex.
Yeah, or sex that looks like the type of sex that humans have.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
human sex, which generally in the vast majority of like penetrative penis and vagina type sex is not going to lead to female orgasm or significant female pleasure without clitoral stimulation. So have that conversation with your partner. I'm not going to sit here and ask James like, well, what's your favorite way to stimulate the clitoris? That is a valid conversation that we can be having. But I think the more important one is for everybody watching this to take a moment with the clitoris havers in their sex life and ask, what do you want a hand here? Is it better if we're facing each other? Should this thrust involve some pressure, or do we want a like slapping experience? Do we want a rubbing experience? Like, what is it that we're looking for? Because having that conversation with your partner is honestly, I think, more important to creating like a loving and strong and intimate connection than the hottest, sexiest sex you could possibly have. Just being able to coordinate, collaborate, and listen to one another about your sexuality is vital and incredibly powerful. So, James, I really appreciate you raising that gripe and bringing that issue to us.
Yeah, love you guys. Keep making a difference.
And James, I apologize. I feel like I may have framed that improperly when I introed you. Like it's bullshit that isn't depicted, not that clitoral stimulation is bullshit. So if that's how it came off, I apologize. But I would also encourage folks like, read the nonverbal cues from your partner. Like if you're getting somewhere with something, keep doing it. If it's not working and they're kind of not, things aren't progressing, try something new and read those cues and ask questions. Do you like that? Is that working for you? And really, like, you can probably figure it out. Like women are perhaps more subtle than men, but they're not the enigma that they're made out to be. Especially if they've already let you get down there. They're gonna give you some cues, and I think that the problem, like these guys were saying, is that it's the female pleasure has been so demonized that men don't even think it's a big deal, or like they don't feel like it's their duty. And I'll tell you, having had sex with many women in my time, it is way better when she is into it, and I'm sure all of you can agree. Like when she is like,
what a thing that feels like it should be taken for granted, but absolutely can't be in our society.
Yeah, I know. Like I can't believe that I'm even saying this, but like, I guess it needs to be said in this current climate where women's healthcare and women's needs and women's lives seem to be being shoved to the back burner.
Basic
I think this is a good
bodily
time
autonomy can't be taken for granted. Yeah,
exactly. So this is a step in the right direction, I suppose, James. Josh, do you have any parting thoughts before we go?
I just find it funny that how much they're able to talk about sex when all TV movies, they're all centered around sex.
We're talking
all
about
the time.
Yeah,
you can't show it. But like in your brain, somebody talks about sex, I'm picturing my dick in a vagina. So I would think like it'd be a little bit more prevalent in the movies. It'd be okay because as soon as you start mentioning it, it's in people's brains. Like put it into the fucking movies. Show a little bit of care. Show a little bit of stimulation on the women.
Yeah, or even if we're not depicting sex, why can characters talk about it? Not who's having sex with who, but like what is going on with sex? I mean, can we have any sort of meaningful dialogue or conversation? And maybe, Josh, that is the ultimate challenge here. Maybe that's why we're sitting here talking about the MPAA, is because we just, as a society, as a culture, aren't talking about sex or aren't having good conversations about sex.